So I woke up 2 mornings ago with a very, very sore throat. And of all the days in the year a preacher doesn't want to have a bad throat, it would be Christmas Day. Maybe shortly followed by Easter straight after that. So I've done my best to talk to as few people as possible this morning. It's not because I'm trying to be rude. My name is Steve. If I haven't met you, I'm married to Jackson. We've got 2 boys. And we'd really like to thank you for spending Christmas morning here with us as we celebrate this incredible moment in human history, the birth of Jesus Christ, the most influential person to have ever been born, lived and died. His life, as we spoke on Christmas Day last year, has had a greater impact on this world than many of us could ever possibly imagine. Now, I'm guessing that not everybody celebrates Christmas the same way. Everybody has different traditions. But for a whole lot of people here this morning, I would guess that giving gifts is part of your Christmas celebration. Am I accurate in that? I saw a boy walking in this morning who had I think it was a Spider-Man outfit on, carrying an action figure. And my guess is that he didn't get given that last year Christmas, is that was this morning's Christmas. Now I'd like to show you a gift that I was given, not as a Christmas gift. This was actually as a housewarming present 2 years ago. But it influenced our Christmas gift purchase this year. So friends of ours, who I believe are here this morning, gave us this gift, and the wife said, I pleaded with my husband not to give you such an ugly looking gift. And the husband said, Steve will thank me because this is so useful. I'm thanking them every time I light a fire, because in our new fireplace, this is a gas fire starter. I'm not being sponsored by the manufacturers of this. I'm just happy about this gift. You plug that onto a gas bottle, stick that into either charcoal or wood. No matter how wet the wood is, no matter how big the logs are, if you leave this on long enough, eventually the fire will start. This Christmas, we gave this as a gift. We found where they were supplied. We gave this as a gift to some of our family members. One of the family members opened it last night, and I could see him thinking, man, these people do not love me at all. So I pulled this out, and I said, this is a well-used one. Every time I light a fire, I'm grateful for this gift. So what I'd like to do this morning is ask you 3 questions as my Christmas message, hoping that they can be like a fire lighter, fire starter, questions that you will ponder today, hopefully tomorrow, and into the new year. All these questions are based on the teachings of the one whose birth we celebrate this morning, Jesus Christ. So 3 questions. Here goes. Number 1. Have I expressed love and appreciation to those close to me? You might have heard the story of the husband and wife who, after being married for 20 years, the wife says to her husband, honey, do you still love me? He says, yes, of course I love you. But why do you ask? She says, well, you never tell me. He said, well, on our wedding day, I said that I love you. If anything changes, I'll be sure to let you know. That is not a great way to let somebody or people around us feel loved. Every one of us have got different ways of expressing our love. In fact, what we're celebrating this morning was an expression of love from God in heaven, if the Bible is to be believed. That baby born in a stable, lying in a glorified cattle trough that we romantically call a manger, was a gift from heaven saying to the world, I love you. God is expressive in his love. Are you and I expressive in ours? I'd like to tell you a story, and some of you would have heard me touch on this if you're part of this church and have been here this year, but I'd like to show you a picture. It's a picture of my brother. I'm one of 5 siblings. I was firstborn. He's 22 months younger than I am. His name is Mark. This is his wife, Justine, that we've known since our teens. And those are his 3 amazing boys, Jamie, Zach, and Benji. On the 2nd of June this year, it was a Friday night, Comrades Weekend, my other brother, Tim, phoned me and said, Mark's just been admitted to hospital. It doesn't look good. Looks like he had a stroke. A little later that night, he phoned. He said they've taken a brain scan, and it's much worse than a stroke. I don't have the picture of the original brain scan, but this is a follow-up picture. That's a cross-section of the scan through his head. And you don't need to be a doctor to know that a hole that big on the left-hand side is not a good thing. What they found was a 2.5 centimeter tumor in his brain. It was a traumatic weekend. We met with the doctor on Monday morning. He explained that he was going to have to go in surgery as quickly as possible. Tuesday, the 6th of June, he was pushed into surgery. But before that, the family gathered around and we expressed our love and appreciation to him. Point I'd like to make is we shouldn't wait for those moments to be the only moments we express love and appreciation. The doctor had warned us that this, if he survived the op, would just be the start of his journey. They'd found a malignant tumor in his brain. We waited that whole Tuesday afternoon for him to come out of surgery. When eventually he came out of surgery, this is what he looked like. Just pipes and tubes. And soon after that, thankfully, he came around again. And apart from just slight pressure in his brain, which was in that hole I showed you, this was when they took the dressing off. He had 52 odd staples, I think, in the side of his head. And that was just the start of the journey. My wife's saying, move along, get that picture off the screen. But it was a really massive moment for our family. That was just the start of the journey, actually. They found another 10 tumors in his body from his neck down. He's now started treatment and is responding really, really well. But for 5 months, while he was waiting to get onto a drug trial, the treatment hadn't started. I guess with the brother being younger than me, facing this kind of terminal, life-threatening disease, you get to do a lot of thinking. We're not always sure how many Christmases we'll have left with each other. And I don't say that in any way to bring fear or a downer or a dampener. I say it simply to say this, is we've got friends and family that are around us, that are with us. Have we expressed love and appreciation to them verbally? Have we told them, I appreciate you, thank you? You know, every single one of us have got tremendous power, God-given power in our tongue and our words to call out the golden people. As we speak words of life, as we thank people for what they've done, as we celebrate their strengths. If you've got kids, as we celebrate our kids' strengths and not only correct, but also encourage and love them. You just see our words have got the power to build other people up. Words of encouragement are exceptionally powerful. When last, or have I expressed love and appreciation to those close to me? Interestingly, in the last chapter of the Old Testament, a prophet spoke about what Jesus would do. And this is what he said. He said, he will turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents. In other words, one of the reasons Christ came to earth was to help us repair relationships. And my prayer is that if you've got unrepaired relationships, that you won't wait till another Christmas to fix them up. Which brings me on to my second question. Remember I said I had three highlighted questions. Number one, have I expressed love and appreciation to those close to me? Number two, have I forgiven everyone who has wronged me? This idea of forgiveness, it's been around for forever, but Jesus Christ was the first person who, through his teachings, celebrated the idea that we should forgive other people. The days that he lived in the Roman times, forgiveness wasn't celebrated. You loved your friends and you hated your enemies. You supported the good guys and you tried your best to take down all those that you considered were bad guys. But here's the deal with bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness. I'd like you to imagine that our lives were designed and built with a backpack, God-given backpack. And in that backpack, part of the load that we get to carry are our responsibilities, the things that we should be doing. The going out to work, that's a good thing. We were designed to work. We were designed to care for ourselves, to provide for ourselves, etc. That's all a good part of the load. But what many of us do is when pain happens, or resentment, or some kind of difficulty, it's like we pick up a rock of bitterness and we add it into the backpack. Bitterness weighs a lot more than happiness and our ordinary responsibilities. It takes up mental space. Somebody put it like this: resentment is like drinking poison and hoping that the other person will die. And so what ends up happening is that if we don't practice the habit of forgiveness, we end up just carrying more and more rocks, a bigger and bigger load of resentment, bigger load of bitterness, of anger against other people. We very often want to take matters into our own hands. Forgiveness doesn't come easily. I was quite encouraged to read this story. It was written by Eugene Peterson. Many of you will have heard of the Message Bible, and it's a paraphrase written by this scholar, author, pastor, and Bible teacher named Eugene Peterson. He was raised in a Christian home, but when he started grade 1, he started getting bullied by a second grader named Garrison Johns. So this is what Eugene Peterson writes. He says, I had been prepared for the wider world of the neighborhood and school by memorizing, bless those who persecute you, and turn the other cheek. I didn't know how Garrison Johns knew that about me. Some sixth sense bullies have, I suppose. Most afternoons after school, he would catch me up and beat me up. He also found out that I was a Christian and taunted me with Jesus sissy. I arrived home most days bruised and humiliated. My mother told me that this had always been the way of Christians in the world and that I had better get used to it. She also said I was supposed to be praying for him. One day I was with 7 or 8 friends when Garrison caught up with us in the afternoon and started jabbing me. That's when it happened. Something snapped. For a moment, the Bible verses disappeared from my consciousness, and I grabbed Garrison. To my surprise and his, I was stronger than he was. I wrestled him to the ground, sat on his chest, pinned his arms to the ground with my knees, and he was helpless at my mercy. It was too good to be true. I hit him in the face with my fists. It felt good, and I hit him again. Blood spurted from his nose, a lovely crimson in the snow. I said to Garrison, say uncle. He wouldn't say it. I hit him again, more blood. Then my Christian training reasserted itself. I said, say, I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. He wouldn't say it. I hit him again. Say, I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And he said it. Garrison Johns was my first Christian convert. That was the man who ended up paraphrasing the Bible and going through all the verses on forgiveness and bitterness. I'm not reading that story that you practice that yourself. In fact, quite the opposite. If anybody had reason to hold a grudge and to want to punch people in the nose, it would be Jesus Christ. On the day that he was born, or at around that time, there was a hunt made for all the children around his age. And effectively a mass murder took place, mass slaughter of children by King Herod. His family, as a result, had to flee as refugees to a neighboring country. As he got older and started teaching, he was betrayed by one of his closest friends who exchanged his life for a payment of money. He was abandoned by his followers in his greatest hour of need. He was tortured and brutally killed by the Romans. And yet, in one of his final living statements, Jesus, whose birth we celebrate today, one of his final statements in his life, he said this, Father, forgive them. He taught his followers that when we speak to God, we could pray and should pray prayers like this, forgive us our sins as we forgive those that sin against us. I'd like to ask you a question. This year, 2017, who has sinned against you? Who has hurt you and me? Who have done things that you've walked this year with some pain, some extra baggage, some extra rocks in your backpack? I'd like to suggest, in light of Christ's example, the way he designed us to live, taught us to live, is we get to empty some of these rocks out of our backpack. We don't need to wait for years, months, or be able to take revenge in order to live free and to live light. It's my second question. Have I forgiven everyone who has wronged me? And here's the third and final question I'd like to ask this Christmas morning. Have I been forgiven? That's a question for you and I to ask ourselves. Now, many people, when they hear that statement, they say, for what? It's them that have done something wrong, not me. I'd like to, in the last few minutes that we've got, with use of a diagram, explain the central teaching of what I believe the Bible teaches us, and the reason that Jesus Christ's birth and death is so celebrated by so many hundreds of millions, if not billions of people around the world today. And my hope that you'll be able to answer this third question: have I been forgiven? With an affirmative by the end of this meeting. The picture goes something like this, and I'm going to fill up the screens with a couple of lines. The Bible teaches us that in the beginning was God, and He existed without any creation. He existed by Himself, perfect, holy, good, and loving. And God, out of His enjoyment of Himself, created man to live with Him. Created the first couple, Adam and Eve, to live in the Garden of Eden. And He designed them to live in a relationship that I guess we could call life. A relationship of connection with Him, of knowing life as it was meant to be lived. Life to the full, if you like, as John chapter 10 says it. He gave those first two human beings just one command, but He's given us all similar ways to live, so let's not blame them. The one command that they broke caused them to be separated from God. And the Bible refers to, when we break God's commands, it refers to it as the word sin. We try and get away by talking about I was just naughty or I just made some mistakes. Saw that in the news recently, didn't we? The Bible refers to anything we do that goes against God's laws as sin. And the important letter in the word sin is the letter I. I doing what I want, when I want, for me. It effectively is a selfish life. And as a result of sin, man gets separated from God and ends up living on a bottom line down here that we could call the line of death. It's a line of an existence that many people misunderstand this to think that must be the worst kind of life, that you have no joy and no happiness. No, it's not like that at all. It's a life of separation from God, outside of His design and outside of this connection, with eternal death attached to it, eternal separation from God. Intrinsically, every human being at some level feels the separation, feels the gap, and tries to do something to connect back to God. Human beings try many different things. I've listed just 3 of them. A very popular one, particularly in our country, is to do good things. People say this: well, if I do enough good things, surely God wouldn't send a person like me or separate a person like me for all eternity away from Him. The problem is that God's measurement of good is Him. None of us, no matter how many good things we do, can leap high enough to reach the top line. So people try things like going to church. Think, if I just pop into church here and there, get a few star charts on my church attendance roster up in heaven there one day when I die, surely God will be happy enough with that kind of life. Again, it doesn't measure up. People, in trying to fill the gap, try many different other religions, or say, maybe there's a way of belief that can help me live better and reach the top line. And here's the difficulty, is that nothing that we do from our side ever gets us back up to the top line. Nothing can help bridge the gap. And so this is the extraordinarily good news of Christmas and the Bible, the gospel, which is just the big word for good news, is this. God, knowing that we couldn't reach the top line, decided to come down to the bottom line. The big fancy word for this is the incarnation. God takes on human form, becomes a man. And that's why the birth of Jesus Christ is such a big deal to every single Christian around the world. It's not just because He was a good man, but because if it's true, God came to earth, lived along the bottom line with us, and then died, if you don't mind clicking on the next slide, and ascended again into heaven. In His death on the cross, Jesus Christ takes the penalty for our sin, which is death. And so we superimpose the word Jesus over sin there. I've heard this referred to as the John 3:16 diagram, which goes something like this. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him wouldn't perish, but end up with eternal life. I don't know if you can see the red arrow down here, but I've drawn this diagram just on the back of a piece of paper, often with people who are investigating the Christian faith. And every single one of us at some point reaches that corner piece where we've got a decision to make. Either I keep doing what I'm doing for me, or I make a decision that says, God, I accept your gift, your Son Christ, His death, taking my punishment. And I want to start a new life with you, a life that starts on the top line. And I'd like to tell you what I do if I draw that diagram for a person one-on-one. I pause at this point. I hand them the pen. This is the question I ask. Where would you put yourself in that diagram? It's a whole lot easier watching somebody else draw some bad artwork than having to place yourself somewhere on that diagram. Meeting with a man the other day, seated in our lounge, in fact, and I asked him, where would you put yourself on that diagram? And he said, I'm on the bottom line. I'm at that point. And I said to him, how would you like to go forward from here? Because it really is your choice. Do you want to keep living on the bottom line, or do you want to start a new life of faith with Christ? His eyes got quite moist. He said, well, I want to start a new life of faith. As we bowed our heads in prayer, I led him in a prayer that said very simply, Jesus Christ, I'm sorry for my sin. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. You see, it's a whole one thing saying I get to forgive others, but it's a much bigger deal to say, God, please would you forgive me for every time I've sinned against you. This essentially is the story of Christmas, the story of the Bible, the good news of why Christ came to earth. I'm guessing that there's a whole lot of people here that if you were to take a pen, you would say, well, I'm on the top line. I love Christ. I serve him. Many of you are part of Cityhill Church. It's possible that you're here today. You're visiting. You're a guest. You might have got dragged along by some very exuberant, caring family members. Here's the question. If you had the pen and that was on a piece of paper in front of you, where would you put yourself? Where do you fall into those lines? I told you at the beginning that I was going to ask 3 firelighter questions. First of all, have I expressed love and appreciation? Secondly, have I forgiven those who have wronged me? And thirdly, most importantly, have I been forgiven? What an incredible idea that God, who expresses his love to us in the birth of Christ, is willing to extend forgiveness and say to any single one of us, if you accept my gift by faith, you can have a new start. You can start on the top line.